For your whole working life, you had a shield, an invisible shield that protected a chunk of your income from the taxman every single year. Money he simply was not allowed to touch. It's the reason so many pensioners have paid little or no tax in retirement. That shield was doing its job quietly in the background, and you probably never even thought about it. Well, this year, something crept in and ate almost all of it. Your state pension, the very payment you rely on, has quietly grown so large that it has swallowed nearly your entire tax-free shield, gobbled it up from the inside. And what's left is a sliver so small it's almost comical, a scrap of protection so tiny that the moment you have even the smallest bit of extra income, a little private pension, a few pounds of savings interest, some part-time work, it spills straight over the edge and the taxman starts taking his cut, income that used to be completely tax-free. Now, most pensioners have absolutely no idea this has happened. They're going about their lives assuming that Shield is still standing strong. The way it always was, it isn't. And the exact amount of protection you've got left this year will genuinely shock you when I show you the number. There's also a promise the government has made about all this. And it's not quite the rescue the headlines made it sound like, which is catching people out badly. So today I'm going to show you exactly what's eaten your allowance, precisely how little is left, what the government's promise really means for you, and most importantly, how to protect the income you've got left from being needlessly taxed. But stay with me, because you have to understand how the Shield works before you can see how it's been raided. My name's Robert, let's get into it. So let's start with that Shield, because understanding it is the key to everything, and most people have never had it explained properly. The Shield has a name. It's called the Personal Allowance, and it's beautifully simple. It's the amount of income you're allowed to receive every single year before you pay a single penny of income tax. Everything you earn up to that line is completely tax-free. Cross the line, and only the money above it gets taxed. For years, that allowance was comfortably large, sitting well above what most pensioners brought in, which is exactly why so many people sailed through retirement, paying little or no tax at all. Now here's the crucial part, the bit you have to hold on to. Your state pension is taxable income. A lot of people are surprised by that. They think of the state pension as separate somehow, off to one side, not really income in the tax sense. But it is. The taxman counts every pound of your state pension towards that personal allowance shield. So your state pension sits inside your shield, taking up space. Whatever room is left underneath the shield, after your state pension has taken its share, that's the space left for any other income you have to be tax-free. For a long time, this was never a problem, because the state pension only took up a modest chunk of the shield, leaving plenty of room underneath for a private pension, some savings, a bit of work, all tax-free. But two things have been happening at the same time, quietly, year after year. And together, they've caused the state pension to swell up and fill almost the entire shield. Let me show you exactly what those two forces are, because this is the heart of it. Here are the two forces that have been on a collision course for years, and this year they've nearly met. The first force pushes your state pension up. It's called the triple lock. It's a government promise that the state pension rises every April by whichever is highest of three things: inflation, average wage growth, or 2.5%. It's a floor that guarantees your pension keeps climbing year after year, and it's done exactly that. This past April, it went up by nearly 5%, so the amount of your shield that your state pension eats up gets bigger every single year. Good news for your income, but watch what it does to your shield. The second force is the one nobody talks about because it works in total silence. It's the freeze on the personal allowance, the freeze on the shield itself. Normally that allowance would rise a little each year to keep pace with the cost of living, but it hasn't. It's been frozen solid at exactly the same figure since 2021. It has not budged a penny in years. And in the last budget, the government confirmed it's staying frozen all the way out to 2031. So the shield is nailed to the floor completely still. Now put those two together and you can see the trap closing. One force, the state pension, swelling up bigger and bigger every year. The other force, the shield, frozen, unable to grow to make room. So every April, the state pension takes up more and more of a shield that never gets any bigger. The gap between the two shrinks and shrinks. And this year, 2026, that gap has very nearly closed completely. Which brings us to the number I promised you, the amount of shield you've actually got left. And I warn you, it's smaller than you think. But first, one quick thing. For those of you who'd rather have all of this, the state pension, this tax squeeze, pension credit, council tax help, the allowances and the deadlines that catch people out, written down in plain English in one place, I've put it into a guide called the UK Pensioner Survival Playbook for 2026 and 2027. No jargon, nothing complicated. If you'd like it by your side, the link is in the description below at robertretires.com/UK. That's it. Now, let me show you exactly how much of your shield is left this year, what the government's promise really means, and how to protect what remains. So here it is, the number. Let me lay it out plainly because seeing it side by side is what makes it hit home. This year, the 2026/27 tax year, the full new state pension pays out £12,547.60 a year, and the personal allowance, your shield, is frozen at £12,570. So take one from the other. 12,570 minus 12,547.60. And what you're left with is £22.40. £22 for the entire year. That is all that's left of your shield after the full state pension has eaten its fill. Not £22 a week, £22 for the whole year. That works out at around 40p a week of protection. It is almost nothing. Now let me make crystal clear why that tiny scrap matters so enormously, because this is where people get caught. It means that if you're on the full state pension and you have any other income at all, the very first pound of it over that £22 is taxable. Think about who that catches. Anyone with a small works pension, anyone with a modest private pension they're drawing on, anyone earning a bit of savings interest, which with today's rates is a lot of people, anyone doing a few hours of part-time work. All of that income used to tuck neatly into the room under your shield, tax-free. Now there's no room left, so it gets taxed at 20% from almost the very first pound. That is millions of ordinary pensioners suddenly finding a tax bill where there never was one before, a brown envelope from HMRC, a changed tax code, and most of them have no idea why. This is the quiet raid, and it's already happening. Now at this point, some of you are thinking, but Robert, I heard the government stepped in and promised to protect us from this. And you're right, they did make a promise, but you need to understand exactly what it covers and what it doesn't, because the gap between those two is where people are getting a nasty surprise. Here's what happened. As it became obvious that the state pension was about to swallow the whole shield, and that in a year or two the pension on its own might tip over the line, there was an outcry. The idea of the taxman chasing millions of pensioners over the edge caused real anger. So the government made a pledge that pensioners whose only income is the state pension would be protected from being dragged into tax over that tiny gap. And that sounds reassuring, doesn't it? But read it carefully because the wording is everything. That protection is for people whose only income is the state pension, nothing else. And here's the problem. That describes very few people. Most pensioners don't live on the state pension alone. They've got a little works pension or some savings or a small private pension. And the moment you have any of that, you are outside the promise entirely. The government's pledge does nothing for you. Your shield is still eaten and every pound of your other income is still taxable from the off. So this is the trap dressed up as a rescue. The headline made millions of people relax, thinking they were safe. But the fine print protects only the smallest group, the pensioner with the state pension, and truly nothing else. For everyone else, and that's most of us, the raid on your shield stands. Which is exactly why what you do next matters so much. Let me show you how to protect the income you've got left. So what can you actually do about it? You're not powerless here. There are real legal ways to shield your remaining income, and now is the time to use them. The first and biggest for most people is the ISA. Here's why it's so powerful right now. Any interest you earn inside a cash ISA is completely tax-free, and crucially, it doesn't count as income at all in the eyes of the taxman, so it never touches your shield. Think about that. Your savings interest is exactly the kind of income that's now getting taxed because your allowance is full. But move that money into an ISA, and the interest becomes invisible to the taxman completely. So if you've got savings sitting in ordinary accounts, generating interest that's now being taxed, shifting them into an ISA over time can protect that income entirely. For anyone over 65 especially, this has never mattered more. The second is the marriage allowance, and couples leave a fortune on the table by not using it. If you're married or in a civil partnership, and one of you has income below the personal allowance, while the other is a basic rate taxpayer, you can transfer a slice of the unused allowance from one to the other. It's worth over £1,000, and you can often backdate it several years. If that's your situation, it's genuinely free money sitting there unclaimed. And the third is simply to stay alert. Check your tax code. As more pensioners get pulled into tax, more of you will start receiving something called a simple assessment, a letter from HMRC telling you what you owe. Don't just assume it's correct. Mistakes happen, and it's your money. And if your income is low, please check whether you qualify for pension credit, because it can be worth thousands a year and it opens the door to all sorts of other help. Knowing where you stand and using these shelters is how you keep the taxman out of the income that's rightfully yours. Now, before I let you go, a few honest points, because I never want you walking away with only half the picture. First, this doesn't get better, it gets worse each year, because the shield stays frozen until 2031 while the state pension keeps rising under the triple lock. The gap keeps shrinking. In fact, the state pension is on course to breach the personal allowance entirely, quite possibly by April 2027, meaning the pension itself could start poking over the line. So this squeeze tightens every single April. What we're seeing now is just the beginning of it. Second, for my viewers in Scotland, your income tax bands work differently, so some of the specific figures won't apply to you in the same way, though the underlying squeeze is the same. Always check the position where you live. And third, everyone's tax situation is different, and this is exactly the kind of area where a little good guidance pays for itself many times over. So if your affairs are at all complicated, a mix of pensions, savings, uncertainty about your tax code, do get advice. There's the free government-backed guidance service and charities like Age UK who can help you understand your position and make sure you're claiming everything you're entitled to. Taken early, before the tax bites, that help can be worth a great deal. The bottom line is this: your tax-free shield has been quietly eaten by your own state pension. Most pensioners don't realise it, and the government's promise protects far fewer people than it sounds. But know where you stand, shelter your savings in an ISA, claim what you're owed, and you can keep far more of your income out of the taxman's reach. So let's bring it home. Your personal allowance, the shield that protected your income from tax, has this year been almost entirely swallowed by your own state pension, leaving a scrap of just £22. Any other income you have now gets taxed almost from the first pound. The government has promised to protect those with nothing but the Hassan Faiz state pension, but that's a small group. Everyone with even a little extra income is still caught. Shelter your savings interest in an ISA. Claim the marriage allowance if it fits. Keep an eye on your tax code and check pension credit. Know the number and you can protect what's left. If this opened your eyes, do me a favour and share it with another pensioner or someone approaching retirement. Most people have no idea this has happened and it could save them real money. Hit subscribe for more, and if you'd like it all written down in one place, the Pensioner Survival Playbook link is in the description. I'm Robert. Look after yourselves, look after your money, and I'll see you in the next one.